What's up and welcome back to another video. I'm Bandit Barney, bringing you everything you need to know about Red Dead Online. And today we're talking about the huge dilemma that Rockstar is gonna try and tackle early 2019. For all of us that have been playing Red Dead Online, and you may have just gotten the game recently during Christmas and the holiday season, the online is really fun for like 2 days, and then you start to run low on content. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be fun past that. I've clearly been playing it for longer than that. But after about 2 days, you start to feel like you've played everything, and then you're going to start doing things over again. And there is a lot of replayability in this game. The world is amazing. The amount of detail that's there is truly, it's jaw-dropping. This game, when it was released and you play the story mode, it set a bar. It set a bar for open world games, and it's going to be hard to touch that bar again. I think they had something like 4,000 pages of dialogue or something like that, insane amount of detail put into the game. And when we step over to the online, we follow up with some of the same detail. We have some story missions, although not very many. We have these stranger missions and job missions, and just the interaction we can have with other players. All of it accumulates in this old west world where we have this feeling of being an outlaw. But there's a huge dilemma that Rockstar has now, because in an old west world where you're an outlaw, things tend to need, or things got to be barren in some places. The way that Rockstar has built out the world, it feels so much like the old west, but is that conducive to content? Now, I'm not saying that just because of the timeline that the game is not going to make great content. I think that it already has made some great content, and I think that it will become bigger and bigger. We did a video earlier where we talked about, because Rockstar is keeping Red Dead Online in beta, that it has the potential to be bigger than even GTA Online. One of the things, though, to note here is, how is Rockstar going to tackle this? How are they going to go about adding content to the game? The direction that they're going is a fine line. In GTA Online, you have a world of today, and that also lets us kind of bridge the gap to the future, because there's no limitation on creating that realistic feeling of being in the 2000s, because we're already here. It's not super desirable. It's just really fun to be completely free in that type of world. Hence flying jets, tanks, supercars, that kind of thing. But when we go into Red Dead Online, we're looking at a timeline in the, I think it's 1890s, where there just wasn't as much. And you need to feel like you're an old west, like you're an outlaw. So it's important to ride your horse through a meadow or through a plain. And it's important to have this feeling of being back in that time zone. How do we add content and make the game crazy like GTA Online was? How do we add that much playability to a game and keep the same feel of being in the old west? It could be one of the big things that Rockstar has to tackle. We'll see more in 2019 when they do start to release content. And I think if we look forward, we have some ideas of where they could go. But for example, in GTA, there's so many buildings, and Rockstar was able to utilize those buildings. At first, when you started playing, there was like, maybe you could get a house here and do this. But by the end of it, there's garages, custom garages, where you can go and get your car pimped out. There's so many different houses to pick from, garages for all your cars. They turned these buildings that initially were in-game and you couldn't utilize inside of them, and they just turned them into things that you could do. Biker gangs and whatnot. So they had a bunch of room to add all these things. Not to say that Red Dead Online doesn't have this room, right? The world's massive, but because it's the Old West, it's not established. There's not all these buildings that they can work with to add things in. And they shouldn't just add buildings. It would ruin the feel of being an outlaw in the Old West. What do you do to create that content or to add to that world, to make that world even more immersive? This is a tricky situation, and one that I think Rockstar is trying to find their footing on, because it is a whole nother workhorse. If you think about it, GTA Online not only could utilize today's technology, but go even into the future. Because there wasn't that barrier of needing to feel like it was in the 2010 era or something like that. But it's different with Red Dead Online because it's important to feel like that old West game that it is. So when we look to add things in, we can add wagons and things like this. But will you ever have a set up house inside Red Dead Online? Is that going to be possible? On top of that, when Rockstar looks to add content outside of adding items, if you want to add locations in GTA, that just meant turning that one building that wasn't playable or usable into something that was playable and usable. But in Red Dead Online, it's going to mean something different. There isn't all those extra buildings that are playable and usable. And in the future, you could turn them into something. There are a few here and there, but if we're going to look towards additions of content like that, you're going to be looking at adding another area of the map. And although it is fun riding your horse around, it adds to that Old West feel. Once the map gets so big, we could have a reverse problem that we have now. Right now, we have an issue of being next to so many other players that you're getting griefed occasionally by someone when you don't expect it. The bigger and bigger the map gets, the less often you're going to have interactions with other players. Now, down the line, when we have a fix for the griefing system, we're going to want to be around other players. It's an important part of the online. It's what makes it so appealing. So, if we have to make the map bigger and bigger, it makes it so we're farther and farther away from other players. But is that the way to go? Is the way to go by adding different areas of the map? I think GTA Online didn't get this. They got mini games and they got things like that, but the map essentially stayed. The size of it and the location of it essentially stayed. And I think it could be hard for Rockstar to find out how to manipulate this map. It's one of the things that a lot of us thought in the back of our head, including Rockstar and other people like video game magazines and whatnot, think in the back of their head that, okay, well, you're in the Old West, so some of the things that worked so well for GTA Online, you're going to have to rework or reinvent how to make that play out. When we have a supercar that can launch up over 100-foot ramps and do these awesome racetracks, some of the most fun things in GTA Online to do, how do we take that, reinvent it, and bring it to the 1890s or bring it back to this time where we don't have cars. You can't put a jet on your horse, right? Like some of these things you just have to find a different way of doing. Now with Rockstar coming in early 2019 with some content updates, we're gonna see some ways of them to tackle this. And this is the big dilemma for them. How can we reinvent what has worked so well for GTA Online and bring that to Red Dead Online? In my opinion, it's going to be much more difficult. There's just not as wide array of things to do. For example, when you're writing a sci-fi show, you can create anything. Anything you could create. And it could be used to create drama, action, whatever, suspense. But when a show is fiction, you can't bring aliens in, right? The world is a little bit smaller that you have to utilize. And that's what we're running into here in Red Dead Online. The world is just a little bit smaller that we have to utilize for content. GTA could be anything. Red Dead, it needs to be Old West. What makes the game so good is that immersive feel of when you jump in, you feel like you're in the 1800s. You feel like this is where you're living. You have to ride your horse distances. It takes time. We did a gang hideout test video, and I was riding around the entire map, hunting down these different gang hideouts, and it took me like 30 to 40 minutes each time to just move around half the map. And that's because it's so immersive. It makes it feel like you're really, truly in the Old West. It's one of the best qualities of this game. It's why everyone has fallen in love with the story. It feels so real, and it really captures you. So how do we keep this feeling of being captured in the online and get that new content, those new additions, those things that work so well in GTA Online? How do we get that over here without losing the immersion? Because the immersion is a huge aspect here. It's going to be a difficult dilemma. I'm curious to see what you guys would think. We know some things that are going to come. We know wagons. We're going to get more wagons. That's going to add to it. Wagons won't take away from the immersion. But can they get super crazy with the wagons? Or do they need to leave it more realistic? That's where I'm kind of on the fence with this. I don't know how far you go, right? Do you go so far? Obviously, to me, putting a jet on a horse isn't gonna help at all, right? Like they did in GTA, jets on cars. But how far do you go? Where is the line to walk in order to add content, keep more entertaining things coming to the game without losing that immersion? The world is more barren in this game, and to its benefit. Because barren, when I say barren, I'm talking about buildings and outside of hunting, interactive things. It's an old West world, undeveloped. How do we get in there and add all this content that worked for GTA and bring it here without losing that immersion? It's gonna be the dilemma that Rockstar has to work through, and I gotta say, it's a big one. Rockstar set themselves up to be very successful, launching the game in beta, following in the footsteps of Epic with Fortnite. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll link the video in the description so you can go dive into that. But the game being in beta is actually to Rockstar's benefit. They probably won't leave beta for a while, maybe a long time. And everything is going in the right direction, but they're working with a beast. They're working with the world of Red Dead 2. An immersive world, but almost a barren one. Almost one where you're wondering, where are we going to add content? Which direction are we going to go? And Rockstar knows this themselves. They've commented on what's going to come to the game and saying, we need to find our footing, and then we're really going to dive in and move forward with it. Finding the footing here. Which angle is the best to take? It's a big decision. It's a decision that for GTA Online worked for 5 years. It's still working today. How do we make that and change it to a 1800s Old West world and keep moving forward with all that fun content? It's the big dilemma that Rockstar's looking at right now. I believe that it comes in the form of adding these different interactive things for gangs to do. Make forming a gang a big priority. Do heists, different missions. I think we are going to need another map addition. We're going to need to add on to the world of Red Dead Online because we just won't have all the potential. Every building in GTA Online was a blank canvas. Could have been turned into anything. The same thing goes for Red Dead Online, but there's not as many buildings. You don't have as many blank canvases. So when we run out of those blank canvases, where do we go? And where do we take those blank canvases to begin with? These are things Rockstar is thinking about, and I'm curious to see in 2019 which direction they start going. An easy first no is that they're going to add heists. We're going to have more wagons. Something needs to be done with camps. They're almost useless right now. So those are a few things that Rockstar can work on, and I think they will probably be hitting very soon. Ultimately, which direction we go in, it's a big tell. It's a big tell. It works so well in GTA Online. We'll have to see what happens here. Thank you guys. I hope you guys are having a good holiday season. Looking forward to the new year and hitting it hard with all you. We are going to get some new content from Rockstar early 2019. I cannot wait. This game is amazing. It's amazing. It doesn't have all the content I hoped it would have, but it is truly amazing. So we got the bare bones of something that can be great. I can't wait to see where Rockstar takes it. Appreciate you. Thank you for your support. Take care, and I hope to see you later.